the things that lead to success, I believe, are more about your thoughts and more about, because actually you can have the best morning routine and do all of those things and tick all of those boxes like a robot. But if you're actually not feeling good within yourself and your thoughts are pretty rank thoughts about yourself and others and the day that you might have, no amount of movement or meditation or anything is going to help that.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mind to Lead podcast. And today I am very honored and excited because I'm sat down with an amazing entrepreneur and business owner, Jane Martino. Jane, amazing to have you here.
Oh, thanks, Georgie. Great to be here. I'm really excited to speak to you today.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on. And look, for those of my audience who don't know who you are, could you just give a very sort of brief introduction into who is Jane and definitely about your business that is absolutely booming at the moment.
Yeah, so I'll keep it brief. It's been a long and winding road to get here. But look, I started out in marketing and communications, and that was kind of where my training ground, I guess. And after working for a couple of different sort of people, they're entrepreneurs themselves actually in fashion and beauty and property, I started out my own agency in my mid-20s and then built that up and sold that after about 9 years to the Bastion Group of companies. And then took some time off. I'd had 3 children in 3 years during that time. And so I was really keen to get more involved with them and with the community. They were at primary school and kindergarten at that time. And so that's really what led me to Smiling Mind, which is the organisation that you referred to in the intro. So I co-founded that just over 8 years ago with James Tutton, who was the founder of Moonlight Cinema. Him and I, he'd been a client of my agency and we became really good friends. So after I'd had some time off when I sold my agency, he asked me what I was up to, and I'd been thinking about doing something around the wellbeing space, in particular for young kids, because I was spending more time, in that kindergarten and primary school environment. I could see a lot of anxiety, even over the smallest things for our young people. So it's definitely a problem I wanted to solve. And both James and I had been really passionate meditators ourselves, but had only come to it much later in life. So I guess the vision was, wouldn't it be great if we could have had that tool and such a proactive, preemptive mental health tool from a very young age, and almost had it embedded into our everyday, certainly our everyday day of learning, but hopefully our everyday moving forward, and sort of see the fitness of our mind much like we all see the fitness of our bodies, which I think we take, unfortunately, a little bit more seriously than the fitness of our mind sometimes. So that's really where the kernel of the idea from Smiling Mind started. So I wasn't working at the time, so I sort of set that up and was, I guess, the CEO or person that got things done for the first year. And then we got enough funding to put a team in place, and I stepped back, and James and I play more of a strategic sort of director role now, and I actually chair that organisation. That then got me into technology. So I raised capital and built my own tech startup, which I did for just over 3 years before it was acquired by ANZ Bank, and then spent some time as part of that transaction in the bank, just embedding my startup into the payment systems and infrastructure in the bank there. And then during that time, really invested and advised a number of different other tech startups and founders that I really believed in. And that's, where my journey's continued, I guess. So looking back in the last probably 3 years or so, I've been really either as a founder, investor or advisor across that sort of startup or tech venture space. Either in operationally or just more from a governance and board and strategic level. So absolutely love supporting startups and young people doing great things. hopefully imparting some of my wisdom, or more likely just helping them avoid some of the mistakes I made.
Yeah. Wow. What a CV that would be. Hey, I mean, that's just incredible. So much stuff there. And look, I think that what you are doing and the product, the Smiling Mind app right now is such a crucial piece of technology that, and it's definitely, meditation is becoming more mainstream, which is amazing to see, because like you, I've meditated now for the last almost 5 years. It changed my life. And I do think that people are starting to actually not see this as like this woo-woo concept anymore. It's actually, it can really, really help and really reduce mental health. But one thing I wanted to touch upon, because I read this earlier when I was sort of on your LinkedIn profile. And is it true that 1 in 7 Australian children suffer with mental illness? That just seems insane.
Yeah, that's the latest statistic. So they're different statistics across different age groups, but spanning primary age children, it is 1 in 7. Spanning teenage adolescent, so what you'd call sort of senior school or high school students, it's 1 in 4, which is actually higher than the national average of what we call adult, which is 1 in 5. So yeah, I mean, I think, you know, primarily Smiling Mind's a not-for-profit. It exists to, you know, help minds thrive, and that's our vision. But in particular, our real goal is to help young minds, because as I said, it's really, you know, we do a lot with the education system. I think there's about 170,000 educators that use our program in their classrooms every day. The federal government has just given us, and state government we've got some additional funding also to look at what we can do around homeschooling, because obviously there's extra pressure both the educators and young people are under, and also specifically they've awarded some funding to healthcare workers and programming specific to them as well. Obviously they're on the front line and under, you know, the types of stress we could never imagine, as well as obviously, you know, putting themselves at risk, which is just, you know, something we're all so grateful for. So I think having specific program for them is fantastic. So yeah, I mean, we actually, the program spans age groups ELC, so really age 3 right up to adult, and then goes into specific streams as well in terms of types of programming. So it could be for sleep, stress, for small business owners and or employees and teams, into, you know, classrooms and you know, environments like that. So we really have, you know, thousands and thousands of hours of content there that's tailored for people to just really pick out what they need help with.
That's absolutely incredible. And look, I wish when I was at school that there was a product like this, because, and I do think that especially now with like the rise of social media, you know, there is, I just feel there's a lot more pressure on younger people right now. And I'd love to know, like, is there, in sort of like the stats and the research and what you're seeing from people going through your programs, what sort of results are these children getting? Are you seeing an improvement? I'm sure you are, but has there been any sort of real changes that you've been noticing?
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of pre and post surveys for all of our users. So we have over 600,000 monthly active users, which is a huge number, you know, for Australia anyway, less so for the bigger countries. But and so we are starting to we've now got a new head of research, and we're starting to really refine those pieces of data, and we'll actually be releasing a regular monthly health report, or bi-monthly health report, which will be really interesting, and we'll actually formally, you know, release that type of data. But we have done our own random control trials to actually look at the efficacy of our specific program. We did that a number of years ago actually, and yeah, for sure, it's definitely we have proven that we increase levels of productivity and ability to focus, because mindfulness and meditation is actually a form of attention training. So first and foremost, it actually helps you be more in the present moment. And so from an educational point of view, it sets you up to be more productive and be, I guess, really alert and more attentive within a learning environment. That's why educators really love it. That's why workplaces love it. And we certainly have similar data across our workplace program also. But in saying that, it also has, the data shows that it has improved sleep, particularly of adolescents, and also the data, particularly in the corporate sector that we've done, because we feed back to our workplace clients a lot of data specific to their, employee workforce. But pretty much across the board, the reduction in stress through, regular usage of the program is really significant. So I think it's not, and there's research outside of our program as well. We're just doing that to make sure that we're hitting the mark in terms of the content that we have our psychologists and specialists putting together. But, there's research from all across the world, and a lot of the institutions that we're starting to collaborate with too, and work with on this to prove, the efficacy of meditation and embedding that into your daily routine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was reading that there's been a 67% surge in downloads since the start of COVID, which is just so good to see. And I think more and more people are going to start taking their mental well-being more seriously. So when did you discover the power of meditation? Like, how did you just sort of was there something that happened in your life that drove you to start? Because I know for me, I was extremely anxious in my early 20s and a lot of pressure, and I turned to meditation as a bit more of just a way to calm my mind. And I'd love to hear your journey of how you became so passionate about meditation and how it changed your life.
Yeah, I think probably mine's a little bit different, because a lot of people, there'll be an event or it will be recommended to them, more so now, less so when I started, but as a way to manage anxiety or assist, in them feel it coping, basically. And I think it's very, very effective for that. But for me, it was actually, I'm very grateful I've never suffered anxiety. I was just in the bucket of people that felt like it wasn't for me. So I am really into alternative medicine. I'm very spiritual. I've always been very open to things like that. So a lot of my friends and colleagues would say, oh, you should try meditation, you'd love it. And I actually resisted it for years. I'd studied Reiki and done all kinds of other things that people would think are way more woo-woo than meditation. But my mindset was, my mind is so busy, I'm busy, that won't suit me. I don't want to sit still. And I guess it was just sort of peeling back that ego and realizing that that's actually exactly why I need it. And that was actually the pursuit of the mind being clear, or having some level of enlightenment through meditation, which certainly is possible, but that being the driver or the purpose was the whole, challenge for me. You don't need to have that. It's actually, and like I said to you at the start of this time together, my vision is for people to see it just like they do going for a run or going to the gym, or, and once I started I did a course and I relented. I think I was just so tired from having 3 kids in 3 years, to be honest. I sort of was trying anything and everything to feel more rested. But, and I realized that, yes, my meditations were quite noisy, and some days they still really are, but that's okay. And I definitely saw the benefits of it very quickly, much like yourself. And research shows that only 10 minutes, 10 days in a row, and you will start feeling the effect. So, for me, it was very much, and I speak to people about this all the time, you don't have to reach nirvana or have it become another thing to be competitive about or hard on yourself about. You actually just have to give it a try. You actually just have to realize that even sitting there for 5 or 10 minutes, being still and constantly bringing your mind back to the present moment, or the guided meditation or whatever you're listening to or doing, is helpful in itself. And that is all, so just sort of peeling it back. So Smiling Mind, I think James and I were super passionate about also just normalizing it. So taking the woo-woo out, realizing that anything you can do is beneficial, and to just keep going. And like with the exercise, if you hit the alarm button one day and you don't get out of bed, that's fine. Just like get up the next day and go for that run.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people say to me, oh, I can't possibly meditate. My mind's far too busy. I'm like, well, that's the reason to meditate, because it's not about, trying to stop the thoughts. It's just being more aware of the thoughts. And I think that's where, for me, I identified my patterns and my limitations and the worries that were sort of coming up through the meditation practice. But you sound like absolute superwoman. You've got 3 kids, you run a successful business, you are, helping other startups. Where do you make time for Jane? What does Jane's self-care practice look like? Do you have one? Like, what does your sort of routine look like?
Yeah, so I definitely have one. Like everyone, I've gone through different periods, but pretty consistently for the last at least 4 years, I've had quite a rigid one. And that's really because, as you say, there's a lot happening, and my boys are teenagers now. And so even though they're a lot more independent, there's actually a lot more on the schedule. But I've always loved getting up early. Like I remember mum and dad plonking me in front of Thunderbirds or some terrible show that used to be on at that time, at 5 a.m. So I've always been an early riser. So I'm just, I get up that time or around that time every morning, and I make sure I have a routine. It's flexible, so however it kind of pans out is fine, but it'll be some form of physical exercise, sometimes rigorous like an F45 or something on, and then I'll have some meditation time. I'm doing a gratitude journal at the moment. I don't always do that, but I'm doing that. So 3 things I'm grateful for. What are my words for today? Sort of some focus time that takes literally a couple of minutes. And then I'll, potentially grab a coffee, read the paper, or walk my dogs and listen to a podcast. So it's kind of a similar format to Robin Sharma's 5 a.m. Club. I'm not sure whether you've heard of him, but he's got the 3 20-minute blocks, which is, I don't, that's a bit too rigid for me. I like variety, so I mix mine up a bit. But the philosophy of getting up early, getting the jump on the day, and having that time for me without work, without emails, without, demands across other aspects of my life, I think is super important.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I have also read Robin Sharma, loved his book. And I also read another amazing book by Hal Elrod called Miracle Morning, which was also really good and talks a lot about having a routine and setting yourself up in the morning for success. But I'd love to know, how important do you think having a routine is? And do you think that contributed to your success?
No, I don't think so, because that's where you get into that trap of putting pressure on yourself. So that's the other thing. Like this morning, this morning I didn't exercise. And I did my meditation, I did my journal, and that was enough. I might do exercise later in the day, but it just didn't work out that way, and that's okay. So the routine, you also don't want the routine to be, oh my gosh, I haven't done my routine, because then it's kind of counterproductive, right? It's so for me, the things that lead to success, I believe, are more about your thoughts and more about, because actually you can have the best morning routine and do all of those things and tick all of those boxes like a robot, but if you're actually not feeling good within yourself, and your thoughts are pretty rank thoughts about yourself and others and the day that you might have, no amount of movement or meditation or anything is going to help that. So there's kind of that, for me, there's that missing piece. And I think, to me, success is doing what you enjoy and having a really big, fulfilling life in your eyes, no one else's. So that's the first thing. Like, a lot of people might think that I have a successful life. I don't really care as long as I think that. There's a lot of people who think I don't have a successful life. That's okay too, because what we all feel is success is different for each of us. So for me, it's more about setting, up, what do I want to do? What's really important to me? If my life is a pie graph, what am I filling it with? And actually first determining like what success actually looks like. It's exactly like running a business. Like, you wouldn't, launch a business without a business plan. And it's the same with us. Like, what does success look like? For me, success is also following my curiosity. So I know what my big goals are and I know what's important to me, but I like having a bit of a winding journey and a winding road that is always different and always changing. That's success to me. That would give other people palpitations every day, so it's and that's, so getting that right and having that pathway and adding that on top of your morning routine and letting that sort of set your tone for your life and your day. And, I think like Louise Hay, I don't know whether you're familiar with Louise Hay, but yeah, I mean, I think that type of theory is the most powerful thing you can do to be successful within yourself. And if you are successful within yourself, whatever else you do in your external world, you will enjoy.
Wow, I just think that is so powerful. So thank you for sharing that. And yeah, Louisa Hay, I absolutely love her work. I recently read her book, You Can Heal Your Life, which was absolutely incredible. But I'd love to pick your brain now on the whole law of attraction, manifestation. What are your thoughts on it? Do you think we can manifest success into existence through our thoughts alone?
Yeah, I think I am a huge believer in what you, probably a simpler version, which is what you put out into the world, you will receive back. And so it doesn't necessarily though have to be about your wishes. And sometimes when, I love Gabby Bernstein, who focuses a lot on this as well, and she calls it like manic manifesting, where people are like, well, I'm manifesting, I'm sitting on my cushion and I'm manifesting and I want this, this and this by 3 months and 6 months, and then it doesn't happen and you sort of lose. So it's more about thinking and being accepting of your path and your journey, and when things change, that is actually part of what you've manifested, good, bad, or otherwise at the time. Often when you look back, you can very much see that it was a wonderful turn in your life or your career that's actually added great depth and evolution to it. So I definitely believe in we are the drivers of our lives, and can create the most unbelievable opportunities for ourselves. But it's as long as we also accept that manifestation isn't just about everything working out just as we want it to. And that actually it's quite the opposite. And that's what's so powerful about it, because out of those things come our most amazing opportunities. So I think that's it. As long as you don't fall into that trap, which I certainly have in the past, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, and I think that's a really powerful message now more than ever, with all of the uncertainty and things going on in the world. But, I guess you mentioned at the start talking about failure and lessons learned. And obviously right now people are innovating, they're pivoting. What sort of advice are you giving to the startups that you're coaching and mentoring at the moment? Are they going through a change? Are they pivoting at this time? What kind of things are you seeing in businesses and in startup land?
Yeah, I mean, none of the ones that I'm advising at the moment are going through that sort of need to pivot. They certainly, my advice to them early on was, even sort of as the wave started to come, is make sure you're capitalized make sure you have runway, because that's the killer of most startups, is just running out of runway and then not being either in a position to raise further capital or have, investors that are interested, and you just don't have the runway to keep going. So that's the main sort of piece of advice, which they've both taken and successfully sort of gone back to their investor set and extended that runway so that basically out until end of 2021, because everything is so unknown. So I think it's about probably preempting, okay, there's a lot we don't know in the next 12-month plus horizon. What can we do to protect ourselves and the business, really, when there's so much that startups are unpredictable at the best of times, let alone at a time like this. So, that's probably been the number one. I think pivots are important, but also dangerous. I think, you certainly should pivot if it's logical and if it makes sense for the business, and potentially it would have been a smart pivot anyway. But just doing that for the sake of trying to survive this period can be dangerous, because it can actually take your business on a completely different trajectory, which might not actually be strategically the right move longer term. So it's just weighing all those things up. But yeah, and really it's very industry specific at the moment too. There's a lot of industries that are much tougher than others, and a lot like Smiling Mind and our industry that are actually flourishing. I mean, we're a not-for-profit, so we have a lot of commercial aspects to the organisation that bring in revenue, so we're not reliant on donations and grants from government, but certainly, we're seeing both sides of the commercial part of our organisation, doing well, as opposed to a lot of other businesses at the moment.
Yeah, which is just so amazing to hear. And when we started the conversation, you mentioned that in the early days you made a few mistakes and some failures, which is why you love coaching new business owners now. And I love to sort of pick your brain on like the common mistakes that you see, and perhaps the mistakes that you made when you started Smiling Mind, and what you sort of learned so far on your journey.
Yeah, I mean, I think, gosh, there's honestly, how long do we have? I mean, there's just so many. But I think there's a couple of probably key themes is how I would describe it to you if we're going to synthesize a whole heap of mistakes. And I think the main one would be people. So leadership and people. I think if I look back, I believe I've always been, quite a strong leader, but I definitely have evolved as a leader. And I think when you have more of an entrepreneurial sort of founder mentality, you can tend to be a very challenging leader and be more autocratic and quite controlling, as opposed to kind of sitting alongside and playing the coach role. So I think that's something to look out for, and can be a huge blind spot, I believe, and I see it all the time. But it's one of the beautiful things about founders, though, and why they're so successful, because they're really dogged. Their attention to detail and the demand that they have to present something just phenomenal to market is second to none. And they're all the things that's why we invest in their businesses. That's why that's why I love working with the founders. So like they say, our biggest strength is our biggest weakness. But if you can early on really tame that in terms of your people and your team, it will be a huge advantage, because you'll keep really good people and you'll grow them, and you'll build a fantastic culture, which will build you a big successful business. The second component of people are not just the people that work for and with you, but the people you choose to put around the business. So whether that's investors or advisors or board members, and actually looking beyond their previous experience, looking beyond their CV, and actually looking at them from more of a human perspective. So when the shit hits the fan, what will happen to my relationship with this person? Will they be out the door so quickly, or will they be happy to stand by me? Because at the moment things are going really well. So there's a lot of people who might want to stand by me. But what about when things go wrong? What about when we're challenged? What about when I'm feeling X, Y, and Z? So really doing your due diligence on the types of characters and humans that you put around yourself, how they complement you and the skills you don't have, and also, like the importance of that really truly connected and valuable friendship and camaraderie that should exist with people that are lucky enough to, be by your side for that journey. I think so they're key things. And then the other things, I guess, outside of people, I would say are the ability to be strategic and not get so obsessed in the day-to-day and the little tiny details that aren't going to move the needle. Asking yourself, is this the difference between someone buying my product or using my product and not? Or is this the difference between a customer, if you're a B2B, a customer coming on board and working with us or not? And really being hard on yourself constantly, so you're not wasting time and you're really focused on the big needle movers, I guess, and making sure you're sort of planning and knowing your numbers really inside out, really understanding your business, so there's no surprises, I think is super powerful. And I'm always really impressed with founders that are on top of their reporting and their numbers, and I'll only invest in the guys that do. But for me, like, investment is also about just great people, great humans, smart people that I can help, people that I think are going to build a big business, and they're just not going to give up. So yeah, I think I've probably, if you look at it from a building a team and a leadership point of view, they're the same traits that I would like for people that work with me, and they're probably things that I didn't rank highly to begin with, and made a lot of mistakes in terms of hiring, made a lot of mistakes in terms of, things I did or didn't do. So yeah, people first always.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I'd love to know, what are some of the traits that you look for in people, when you come to hire, and what is your approach?
So the one thing I used to do, I'm a really intuitive person and do think I'm good at reading people. So I used to kind of go with that, and I'd say, no, my gut says this, this, and this. So I used to have a fairly loose way of hiring, through referral. I'd have an interview, and I've really changed that probably in the last 10 years, certainly 5, to be super rigorous. So what I would say to people is, make sure, if you love your business, it's like you're having a relationship with this person. So make them jump through hoops, make sure they want to work with you and you really want to work with them. Like that's good for them, and it's good for you. So, yes, initial interview, making sure they also meet and interact with other people on the team, making sure they actually be part of solving a problem or some kind of activity within the business. So you can really test, how do they think? How do they interact with others? What are they good at? What are some of their weaknesses that are coming up? So set them a task and or bring them in and actually get them working, even for an hour or so with the team. Definitely I do disc profiling or some kind of profiling, so you can see what they're like, and also you'll have hopefully a profile of everyone else on your team. So how will they fit in? Who would they work well with? Who would they not work well with? And then also do your due diligence in terms of other people who have worked with them. Not necessarily references, so not the formal referees, but what do the people say that have been maybe the most junior people they've worked with? How were they treated? How did they feel around them? All of those types of things I think are really, really important. So yeah, it's a far more rigorous process, and I'd really encourage people to do that, because it's fun as well. I think you also then build a bit of a bond with the person during the process, which is important.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's really refreshing hearing you say that. I mean, I run a recruitment company, and I always say, people are so important to your business and the growth. You can't grow without the right people in the right positions. But I love to talk with you now about, obviously we're living through very challenging times. There's a lot of people who are stuck at home. Before we jumped on this call, you obviously were, homeschooling your children, and there's lots of uncertainty, and we've really been thrown into this pandemic. And there's some people who are thriving. There's some people who are really struggling right now. But let's speak to those who are really finding this challenging. Do you have any advice or tips that you're using in your own life, in your own business, to homeschool your children, that are keeping you calm, is keeping you focused, and really, really helping you during this time? How would you coach somebody through this period if you were speaking to them right now, if they were really, really finding this whole pandemic and situation that we're in really, really hard? What would you say to those people listening right now?
Yeah, I think it's so hard because everyone's so different. And I think situations like this, for some people are actually doing quite well in this situation. They might be people that enjoy their home space a lot more. They're enjoying having more time as a family. And then others who find that, who are in smaller spaces, they actually love being out and about, that they're more extroverted, so that feeding off other people's energy is really important to them. So it's sort of hard to give broad advice, but I think the one thing is just to work out what works for you. So and make sure that during the day you're taking some breaks and getting up either from your computer or the phone, and making sure you're breathing in the air. That's certainly something so when I'm with the boys homeschooling, I make sure they're fed really regularly. It's kind of interesting, fun food. And then that they're having bursts of sort of fresh air and breaks during the day. And then at least one form of physical exercise. And I think it's sort of the same for us. Are there some really interesting, yummy things that you can eat or have during the day to look forward to, because you can't really go out and eat and all that, so taking some of those things that we enjoy and miss from our everyday life and kind of embedding them into what we're doing now, so it's a little bit easier to cope, and then having those breaks and bursts of fresh air, or doing something different, or chatting to a friend, or whatever it is, just to break the day up. And also having something to look forward to. I try and do still Friday night drinks with girlfriends or people I've worked with and things like that. So yeah, there's still kind of those marks in the week and in the day that you can really look forward to. And walking meetings are really good too. Obviously a little bit more challenging here in Victoria now with the face masks, and it's hard to sometimes hear people when you're walking. But that's another way. If you want someone who loves that more face-to-face contact, but you can't have it, that side-by-side sort of walking meeting, I think can be good.
Yeah, I think that's just such valuable advice. So thank you for sharing that. And yeah, look, I think it is time to be really focusing on the things that we can control each day, which leads me on to what you said at the start around gratitude. And I really want to touch upon that quickly because I think it's a really, really powerful practice. So I'd love to hear about how you go about this. Do you, write down 3 things each day, or do you sort of wake up and say your gratitude out loud? How do you go about your gratitude practice?
Yeah, so I sort of float in and out of it, to be honest. I am doing it at the moment. I just collaborated. I wrote one for a friend who's got organic clothing, and so I've just been actually using that, and that's a really good one. So yeah, I actually do that with my kids. So we do our 3 great things at the dinner table every night. We have done for years and years, and even as teenagers they suffer through that, and even when their friends come over, which I think sort of slowly is becoming more mortifying as they get older. But yeah, so I think I just find different ways to do it. I think as well, it's a really powerful thing in business. Like, I often talk about this, but I've like always saying thank you to people who have helped you along the way, you know, whether that's a gesture, sending them something, writing them an email or a card out of the blue. I find when you do that more and express it more, you feel more grateful generally anyway as well. So, you know, in life, I think it always helps if it's not all about you all the time. So that's why as well, the gratitude journal process is really powerful, and it can refocus you and give you greater perspective on your life and how really privileged we are, because it's ridiculous. We really are. However, I also think it's yet another thing that's all about you. So I do always say to people, and one of the things actually that I put in this gratitude journal was, you know, one of the activities for the day is to have a gesture, like a really nice, send a text out of the blue, an email or something, do something kind for someone else that might be a surprise for them. And sometimes I feel like that's even more powerful again. So that's also another thing to do if you don't want to do the gratitude journal that I find even more potent.
Yeah, I completely agree. Just keep on sharing the love, keep on sharing the appreciation, the gratitude. Jane, I've absolutely loved having you on today. Thank you so much. For those that want to reach out, you know, where can they find you? Where should they go?
Yeah, I think there's a link, well, obviously LinkedIn, and then there's, I think, a link on the Smiling Mind website. So that's probably the best place. And then you can check out all the content and find the meditations that suit you as well.
Yeah, and we'll put all the links in the show notes below. So make sure you go and check that out, because I think now more than ever, meditation is so powerful, and what you've created is such an incredible product. And I know for me, like, I still sit down and do my meditations every single day. It's a huge part of my routine, and I can't imagine not meditating now. It's you know, just had so many incredible benefits in my life. And yeah, just wherever you are, give meditation a go. Download the Smiling app. There's so many incredible courses on there as well. So yeah, Jane, thank you so much. It's been amazing having you on.
Thanks for having me. All the best.
Thank you so much for listening to the Mind to Lead podcast. I really hope you got some great takeaways and key learnings from this episode. To help us spread the message, please give us a rating and leave us a review. We love reading your thoughts and your insights and your learnings. And look, reach out to me. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm Georgie Hubbard. Reach out to me on Instagram. I'm Georgie L. Hubbard. Let's connect. I hope you have an incredible day, and I look forward to speaking to you all again soon.